Have you been online lately? If you have, you've probably seen the chatter, the speculation about dates, signs, and one of the most debated topics out there, the rapture. There's been a huge surge of interest, so today we're going to break it all down. What is it? Where'd the idea even come from? And why does it keep grabbing our attention? Okay, let's get into it.
You know, it really feels like it's just part of being human, doesn't it? This obsession with the end of the world. I mean, throughout all of history and so many different cultures, we've been completely fascinated with the end of days. It doesn't matter if it's ancient prophecies or some modern prediction on the internet, there's this constant pull to figure out when and how it's all gonna wrap up.
And right now, that big general fascination is getting really specific. It's zeroing in on one particular time frame. A lot of the conversation you're hearing is pointing right toward the fall of 2025, and it's all tied up in ancient calendars and some very specific ways of reading the Bible. So, what's the story behind this kind of prediction anyway?
To really understand what's happening now, we've got to look at the past. Because trust me, this is not the first time a specific date for the rapture has gone viral. Not by a long shot. It's actually part of this long pattern of expectation and, well, waiting.
Okay, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What even is the rapture? Well, at its core, it's this belief in a very specific event. The idea is that before some final period of judgment hits Earth, all Christians, both living and those who have passed away, will be instantly taken up, caught up to be with Jesus. This is the central idea that all those predictions revolve around. And wow, have people tried to pinpoint the timing? Back in the 1840s, a guy named William Miller had his followers so convinced that they actually sold their stuff, leading to what's now called the Great Disappointment. Much more recently, maybe you remember the buzz around 1988, or Harold Camping's massive ad campaigns back in 2011. Each time, the date came and went. But for believers, that underlying hope, it never really faded.
So why 2025? What's the deal with that? Well, the connection people are making goes right back to the Hebrew calendar. See, in Christian scripture, there's talk of a last trumpet that will sound when believers are gathered up. This has led a lot of people to see a symbolic link to the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, which is also known as the Feast of Trumpets. It's celebrated by blowing a shofar, a ram's horn. And in 2025, that feast happens in late September, and that's exactly what is fueling this whole new wave of speculation.
But here's the thing. The Christian idea of the rapture doesn't just exist in a vacuum. To really get a handle on it, it actually helps a lot to see how it stacks up against the end times beliefs of other major faiths, like Judaism and Islam.
And, it's not that simple. Even within Christianity, people don't totally agree on the timing. By far the most popular view, especially in evangelical circles, is called pre-tribulation. That means believers get raptured before a really nasty 7-year period of global chaos. But others think it'll happen right in the middle of that period. And some think believers have to go through the whole thing, and then they get caught up at the very end. So the when is a huge point of debate.
So if we zoom out a bit, you start to see some really fascinating parallels and, of course, big differences. Christians are waiting for the rapture and second coming of Jesus. Traditional Judaism is waiting for the arrival of a Messiah to bring peace. And in Islam, the belief is that Isa, that's their name for Jesus, will return alongside a figure called the Mahdi. They're expected to team up to defeat an Antichrist figure and bring justice to the world. It's pretty interesting, right? Especially seeing the central role that Jesus, or Isa, plays in both Christian and Islamic end times belief.
All right, so according to the most common Christian teaching, what's supposed to happen on Earth after believers are gone in the rapture? Well, the theology lays out a pretty specific chain of events, a period that's often called the Day of the Lord.
So here's the timeline, step by step. It starts with that 7-year tribulation, where a figure known as the Antichrist comes to power. This whole period climaxes with the visible second coming of Christ, who returns to defeat him. That event kicks off what's called the millennium, 1,000 years of peace on Earth. After that, there's a final judgment for all of humanity, and the whole thing wraps up with the creation of a new heaven and a new earth. Basically, a total reset of everything, forever. Okay, so with all this talk about timelines and huge cosmic events, there's a really important question that comes up. How is a believer supposed to actually live their life today? The focus really shifts away from circling a date on a calendar to, well, developing a certain way of being right now.
And the guidance for believers usually boils down to 4 main things. First, stay alert. Pay attention to the signs, but don't get obsessed with setting dates. Second, live a holy life. Focus on your character, your actions. Third, love boldly. That means actively helping people, forgiving, being generous.
And finally, and this one is so important, hope joyfully. Because for believers, the end isn't supposed to be some scary doom and gloom thing. It's framed as the ultimate, most glorious hope you can have.
This verse from the Bible really hits the nail on the head when it comes to that practical takeaway. The whole idea is that the hope of this future event is supposed to have a real, direct impact on how you live your life in the present. That anticipation is meant to be this force that motivates you and, well, purifies you.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. After looking at the whole history of failed predictions, the complex theology, and how it all compares, you have to wonder, maybe the real point isn't about getting the calendar right. Maybe the true purpose of these prophecies, for the people who hold them dear, was never about predicting a specific moment in time, but about inspiring a specific way of life, right here and right now.